When you have decided to embark upon the journey of your new identity, fear is actually a sign that you are on the right path, like you are doing the right thing. It's like a quote by Carl Jung. I might butcher this, but he talks about how fear is actually a sign, like, or where your fear lies, that is where your next action is. And I can attest to this as well. Like, definitely where your fear is, that's where your next challenge is, that's where your next step is. But here's the thing, it's only when you are acting as your new identity and you are doing things that your new identity would do, that fear is like valid, or not even valid, but when you are taking steps along your new journey and you are acting as if you are acting as your new identity, when the steps come up and you feel fear with them, that's totally fine. What I'm talking about, okay, so there's two different types of fear. There's the fear that like is general, like life-threatening safety fear, like you are putting your life in jeopardy. Okay, that's not the type of danger I'm talking about. And I mean, yes, there are things like skydiving and things like that, whatever. But for this video's sake, we are not going to talk about that. Yeah, avoid the fear that is like actually life-threatening. That's not good. But I'm talking about the fear that like, you know, you're kind of being urged to do. Like it's kind of like a action where, say you're like wanting to become an artist. That's the first thing that's coming to me right now. And you have never painted anything in your entire life, right? And you are about to grab your tools that you just bought from the store and you're about to start painting, and you're like feeling this fear, like, oh my gosh, what if I like mess this up? Oh my gosh, like you're getting all jittery and anxious because you've never done something before. You've never done this before. You've never painted before. It feels foreign. This is what I'm talking about. This is the fear that means you are on the right path. When you feel kind of like that edge of expansion, like you know you're gonna grow from this, but also you are terrified. Or if you want to be a content creator and you pull out your phone and you feel the jitters of you're about to make your first video and you've never done this before, and all of a sudden your mind goes blank and like you have no idea what you're gonna say, but you kind of you have this feeling like it feels aligned, but you still feel the fear because you have this image of you who is a content creator, and you know if you keep showing up and you keep taking action and you keep making content, that fear will eventually dissipate because it becomes your new normal. Like you can tell that it's fear, that's only fear because it's the unknown, because you have never walked this path before. Nothing like life-threatening. Or another great example that I just thought of is if you are someone who like wants to be a singer or like wants to do things that require you to like be on stage, talk on stage, right? And like be in front of all these people, but you have a fear of like public speaking. That is not a life-threatening fear. That is not going to kill you. That is going to help you grow and inspire, and it is going to help your new identity flourish when you take action steps like practicing public speaking, practicing being on stage and performing in front of people, right? So this is like the fear that we're talking about. This is the fear that actually means you are on the right path. And why does it mean you are on the right path? Because this fear means that your self-concept is shifting. Right when you're about to pick up that paintbrush and you feel so terrified, or right when you pick up your phone, or right before you get on stage and you feel those jitters, this is the perfect moment to practice and like to not react, because this is the moment where your old identity can creep back in and keep the loop going and going and going. When you feed into the fear, when you react to the fear and you let it get to you, you let it consume you, you think of it in the way where it's like this fear that is constant. It's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? This is not okay. I need to stop. I need to stop. Like you're feeding the fear, right? Instead of looking at the fear as, okay, this is not who I am anymore. I am someone who performs on stage. I'm going to let this fear flow through me. It's okay if I feel jittery a little bit because this is just who I am. Or like if you're an artist and you're like, okay, I'm feeling this fear, like you're assuming the new identity. This is the perfect opportunity to assume the new identity, because when you shift to that state of like, this is who I am now, and my baseline is peace and calm, and I can do this. When you feel those pre-stage jitters, instead of feeding the fear and sending yourself into a full-blown panic attack spiral, which it's okay if that happens. It just means you're prolonging the old identity from completely dying off. And in order to fully step into your new identity, your old identity has to wither and crumble away, because you cannot carry old baggage into a new state, into a new world. Like, you can't move into the future if you're still holding on to the past, right? And so this is the perfect opportunity to practice that new identity, practice that new state where you're still afraid to go on stage, and you recognize that fear, but you recognize that fear is just an emotion. It is just the weather. It is not changing who you are. It is not changing the location. And you know that, okay, so I kind of wanted to talk about this in a different video, because I got a really good comment about this where it was talking about how emotions, like, they were wondering if emotions and states are the same thing. And no, they are not, but that is on the right path. Your emotions are the weather. It's small fleeting waves of energy that pass through you but do not define you. States are essentially like your climate. So you know when you travel somewhere and it has a particular climate, if you travel somewhere like Fiji, right? Fiji is known to have rainy weather in the summer, I believe, or some, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I just always think of it as having sunny weather a lot, but also rainy weather. Like, you know, it's a tropical climate, right? You know the weather's warm consistently. Versus Antarctica, they have snowstorms. It's negative 20 plus degrees on a daily basis out there, right? Correct me if I'm wrong again, because I might be wrong. But basically what I'm getting at here is you see the climate difference, right? Your state that you are being in is the climate, and that is based off of your identity, who you assume to be, your self-concept. And your self-concept, identity, whatever you want to call it, who you are being at a core base level, is the location. That is the location. That is what does not change. I mean, you still can change it, obviously, but that's like where you're consciously aware of changing it. And then based on wherever you go, whoever you are being, there is a particular climate. So say you are someone who is about to be someone who is a singer, like going on stage. That's someone who is calm, confident, clear-headed, maybe someone who's a little witty, charming, charismatic. That's the climate. That is the climate of the location, right? And then the emotions, sometimes nervous energy flows through. Those are just the waves of energy flowing through, and you are not allowing yourself to cling to those, because if you cling to those, boom, it becomes a different climate, and that changes the whole situation. Your self-concept, you got to move now, because you've like tainted that self-concept in a way, if that makes sense, right? Like you let the fear get to you. So this is like a perfect opportunity of letting the fear not get to you, because when you are in a new state and you are practicing a new state frequently, your subconscious and your ego, like the subconscious wants you to stay as comfortable as possible. Your ego wants you to stay as comfortable as possible. It is going to freak out when you switch states, when you are jumping timelines, because your subconscious mind, your ego, does not know the difference between what is safe and what isn't, because based on how you've been living, it has been very safe. It does not know that your new identity is safe yet. Say you're someone, again, we're going to just keep flowing with this example of wanting to be on stage, right? Like say you're wanting to be a singer here, and you are about to go on stage, and for the very first time, obviously there is going to be some jitters. The fear is going to creep in full swing, because your old identity, your ego, your subconscious mind has been so used to walking the path of the old identity for so long. We're taking something new, we're taking new action that the new identity would take, but that the subconscious mind is not used to. It's unfamiliar. And just because it is unfamiliar, it is going to raise those red flags so that your alarm bells go off. Your nervous system, it's going to trigger your nervous system to go in fight or flight. And you're going to be in your system is going to be flooded with stress hormones, because it is completely unfamiliar, right? This is why they say imagination is key in situations like this, and it can help a lot with this kind of foreboding and like trusting. Like it teaches your body to trust the new before you actually do it. Like there are studies that have been done actually, and correct me if I'm wrong, because like I might butcher this. It's been a while since I've read books about this and stuff, but there have been studies that there was like a control group, a group that actually exercised, and a group that did not exercise but just imagined that they exercised. And I think it was like finger muscles, right? And I know they've done practices or I can't think of the word, experiments like this with like sports and stuff too, right? I believe it was like shooting basketballs. And there was the same thing, a control group that did nothing, the subject group or whatever that actually practiced basketball, and then the other group that basically imagined they were playing basketball in their head. And they did brain scans on all of these people. The control group, nothing changed because they weren't doing anything. The people who actually worked out and the people who actually played basketball built parts of their brain, new neural pathways around that practice because they were actually doing it more and more, right? But what was interesting is in this study, when they scanned the brains of the people who were just imagining moving their finger in their head or just imagining playing basketball in their head, the same amount of time as the people who actually played basketball in real life, they had up to 40% of increase in brain volume or whatever the brain expands in learning something new. I know there's a name for it, but I can't remember it. That actually expanded too, because your brain does not know the difference between real and imagined. So if you are practicing something in your head, you are training yourself the same way you would as if you were actually doing it in real life. You're training your body that this is safe, this is new. So even like before, this is why they say that imagination is key in situations like this, because you're training your body to feel safe, to expand. And the more you practice this in real life and in your mind, you are training your subconscious mind. You are training your reticular activating system, which is the filter in your mind. You're also training your nervous system that this is all safe, and it is slowly but surely sinking to your new identity. And with the amount of conviction that you have, this can actually change in a few days for you to feel safe doing something. Like, this is totally possible. The human brain is absolutely insane and amazing and beautiful. I mean, not beautiful, because the brain's actually kind of gross looking, in my opinion. And the more and more that you put yourself in opportunities or imagine opportunities of you doing something that follows your new identity, what your new identity would do, like in this case, going on a stage or picking up that paintbrush and making that painting or posting content, the more you are giving yourself opportunities to choose the new identity instead of reacting to the old fear, which essentially closes the gap. Because every time you choose that you are the new identity, you take action based on what that version of you would be doing. Like, ask yourself right now, like, if at the end of this video or whenever you wake up the next day or whenever you do your next action, I want you to stop and ask yourself, like, the version of me who has everything I desire already, what would they be doing right now? What would their next step be? What would they be feeling like? How would they be reacting? How would they be feeling, essentially? I mean, I think I already asked that, but you get the gist of it, right? And then move from that state. That's going to, every time you choose, you are the new identity, you are jumping timelines. And when you are jumping timelines, that fear is going to come up sometimes, and it's giving you the opportunity to have that gap close between who you are and what you are, like where you are right now and what you want. It's going to close that gap. Because the more you choose your new identity in those moments where you are feeling fear, you are choosing that new identity, choosing that new neural pathway. It is going to close the gap between where you are and where you want to be in the physical 3D world when you are choosing that new identity. I'm hoping that this is making sense. I feel like that was kind of confusing when I said that. But basically, if you were to choose fear instead, like say you're about to go on a stage, right? This is just the easiest example for this video, but say you're about to go on stage and you are feeling that fear and you choose to feel the fear instead and you let it consume you to the point where like you can't go on stage and you'd say, oh, maybe next time. You gave into the fear and you're teaching your brain that the old identity is stronger and you're following that neural pathway again as your brain wanted you to, because that was the comfort zone, that's the comfort path. And it's going to be harder and harder to keep choosing the new identity the more and more you choose fear instead. But when you choose the new identity and you show up as the new identity, like, oh, this is just who I am now. I'm charismatic. I'm going to let this wave of jitters pass because I know it doesn't change who I am. When you think from there and you think that instead, you still show up as your new identity. That is what collapses timelines. That is what closes the gap between who you are and who you want and where you want to be in life. And that is just going to change everything for you.